Family. Um, I'm quite tired today, so I'm not going to be too fancy. Um, we are going to be in Psalms. We're going to read a psalm. We're going to talk about it a little bit, meditate on it a little bit. That'll be a good time. Hope y'all are well. Share some joys in the chat. Any concerns if we have them. My little Jesus is on the fish tank. He's walking on water. Anyways, all right, we've stalled enough. People get in, but yeah, we'll have to share little Jesus some more. I appreciate the challenges that Pastor Sarah gives us. I'm excited about the NLI report. Definitely, if you haven't read that, check out Sarah's emails. And Easter was really beautiful. I had my family in town yesterday, my mom and dad. We got some sandwiches from Taste, and then met up with a family friend at Trashmore and sat and talked for like an hour and walked around a little bit more. It was really beautiful. Good Easter. All right. I read this on my phone, which is I usually have in like NLT, New Living. Oh, interesting. I had it in NIV in this case. Is that true? My regular paper Bible is NRSV. I enjoy it. I think it's easier to understand, but it still kind of sounds like a little like holy. So that's nice. But anyways, we're in Psalm 62. We're going to talk a little bit about rest, and because I'm very tired and I preach to myself. And yeah, so I'm at Psalm 62. Feel free to read along. I'm reading out of the NRSV. Psalm 62, to the leader, according to Jeduthun, a psalm of David. Verse 1. For God alone my soul waits in silence. From him comes my salvation. He alone is my rock and my salvation, my fortress. I shall never be shaken. How long will you assail a person? Will you batter your victim, all of you, as you would a leaning wall, a tottering fence? Their only plan is to bring down a person of prominence. They take pleasure in falsehood. They bless with their mouths, but inwardly they curse. For God alone my soul waits in silence, for my hope is in him, or is from him. He alone is my rock and my salvation, my fortress. I shall not be shaken. On God rests my deliverance and my honor. My mighty rock, my refuge is in God. Trust in him at all times, O people. Pour out your heart before us, or before him. Man, I can't even read today. God is a refuge for us. Those of low estate are but a breath. Those of high estate are a delusion. In the balances they go up. They are together lighter than a breath. Put no confidence in exhortation, and set no vain hopes on robbery. If riches increase, do not set your heart on them. Once God has spoken, twice have I heard this, that power belongs to God, and steadfast love belongs to you, O Lord, for you repay to all according to their work. Amen. So there's a couple really neat things in this psalm. That can be nice to individually pray through and think about. My biggest connection to this psalm in terms of like rest is this notion of God being strong. I feel most at rest. I feel most at peace. I feel most like I can let go of everything. When I am with somebody that I trust, and I just like kind of check out. Like I just will like lay down on the floor or couch or whatever and just know that there's somebody there who's like doing all the things. There's somebody that's, you know, watching to make sure nothing catches fire. There's somebody to watch making to watch or make it watching to make sure um there's not somebody breaking in. There's somebody watching to make sure that there's not water leaking from the ceiling, whatever. Even just those like super rare things that are important, that like uh, a certain amount of our brain is always focused on, like listening for loud noises, anything that we think is important. Um, I especially in my room, well, in general, um, I'm very like attuned to any kind of water noise because I've had fish tanks for so long, um, that I know if I am hearing something and it sounds like water and it does not sound like what it usually sounds like, that's bad and it needs my immediate attention. So if something starts going wrong with like a filter in the middle of the night or something, um, for the most part, like everything's set in ways that even if something malfunctions, stops working as intended, whatever, it's not going to flood the house or anything. But even just like a little drip or water kind of like splashing out or something like that. Um, if I'm asleep and I hear anything that's out of the ordinary that has to do with water, I'm like right there. Like there's a part of my brain that's always dedicated to listening for abnormal water sounds to make sure that I don't accidentally flood my house that I'm renting. Um, that's like something that my mind is always dedicated a portion to. And similarly, if people are home, there's a part of me that's always listening to see if somebody knocks at the door or like knocks on the door to my room, or if, my housemate needs to move his car, or these things, especially like, if you've got a job that you're on call 24/7, or you're kind of always, you know, required to be responsive to something, or maybe yeah, like might have to come in. There's always a part of our brain, there's always a part of our bodies that is like, um, that is primed, that the neurons are ready to fire. They know where to go. They know that, and they're like ready because that's their whole like job. Is they're like, okay, we know what might go wrong. We're gonna like stay, primed and ready to go so that we can launch. We can send the message as fast as possible, and with as much emphasis as possible if it's needed, or we can take action. Um, and that's exhausting. That's totally just like how we're designed neurologically. Um, and so there's a certain amount of this that we're always going to do. Like, um, you know, I have this to some degree working with kids, but I'm sure especially for parents, like you're never like not listening in some way for uh, like a cry of distress, a cry of distress from like your child or anything like that. Um, and so if I am with somebody that I trust, and I trust their ability, and I trust their judgment, and I trust their intention, um, then I can like shut off so many of those little things. I can let go of so many of them. I can just go like all these little tiny micro things. If anything happens, like they'll deal with it. And I will close my eyes and just like fall asleep or just like rest. I'll like drift off into whatever. And it is so peaceful. And I'm able to do that again because I trust that person's ability. I trust that if something happens, they're going to be able to handle it, whether that's, as something as simple as a knock at the door or, oh, something caught fire. Um, they can pay attention for that and then, get me if needed, whatever. And so I trust their ability. I trust their judgment, so that if they see something's on fire or they see smoke, they're not just going to go, probably shouldn't like nudge Jason or whatever. So I trust their ability, I trust their judgment, and I trust their intention. And intention might be a little more abstract, but whereas judgment might be something like, oh, I see smoke. Like, I'm using my judgment to determine that that's a very high risk factor for wherever we're in right now. If I so that same person, maybe if their intention is entirely selfish and they're like, I'm just going to leave Jason and run out the door. This is a really bad example, but I'm going to focus on myself. I'm going to get out. Then, they had the judgment to know it was dangerous. They had the ability to recognize it. And they had the intention to keep themselves safe. And versus if I'm with somebody I trust their intention to care about me and my well-being and help me get out of there. And that is very much kind of how I feel like God is described in terms of like trust here. Let's see. Like, for God alone my soul waits in silence, for my hope is from him. He alone is my rock and my salvation, my fortress, I shall not be shaken. On God rests my deliverance and my honor, my mighty rock, my refuge is in God. Trust in him at all times, O people, pour out your heart before him. God is a refuge for us. So it's because of God's ability, his capacity, his strength, his resilience, that the psalmist or David is able to put his trust in God. He's able to say, you have the ability, you're the God of the universe. Whatever's going on in my life that I'm worried about, I can take it and I can not just irresponsibly let it go into the ether. Because, David's the king of a nation. He's got a lot on his plate that's very important. And just letting it all go and not thinking about it ever is not a very good solution for David. And so David can say, I trust God's ability. I'm going to let go of this and give it to him. It ends with, once God has spoken, twice have I heard this, that power belongs to the Lord, or belongs to God. Again, an acknowledgement of capacity. And steadfast love belongs to you, O Lord, for you repay all according to their work. So that's a clear note of intention. Of not only does God have the ability to fix it, he loves me. He's a God of steadfast love, and he values justice. These are his intentions. His intentions are good for me, and he has the ability to intervene meaningfully in my life. And judgment, there's some places of comparison, like those of low estate are but a breath, those of high estate are a delusion. And the balances, they go up, like as in like physical balances, like they're very light. They don't have a lot of weight or meaning. They are together lighter than a breath. Put no confidence in extortion and set no vain hopes on robbery. If riches increase, do not set your heart on them. This is judgment, especially talking about like, everybody, rich and poor, they don't have this weight. They don't have this capability like God does, like Jesus does. And so if we try and put our stock in them, if we try and trust someone who doesn't have the capacity, who doesn't have the judgment, and doesn't have the interest, then we're going to end up hurt. It says, do not set your hearts on them. And says, be wary of like these things going up and down. So um, I don't remember this happening, but I remember my father especially telling this story quite a bit. We used to, when I was growing up, we'd vacation at Chincoteague over on the Eastern Shore. And one of the things that they do is they send the planes over for, I think, I think it was like a spray for mosquitoes or something. And so I am wee little lad Jason, being held in my mother's arms. We're in Chincoteague. Plane starts flying over, making a bunch of noise and spraying something. Little me, before then, is very content in my mother's arms. Mom probably feels nicer than dad. I'm probably with mom more. Again, I'm like, I don't know, however many months old. Um, Somewhere younger than the age of like 2. And so, maybe mom's my favorite. And then big scary thing comes over top, and I leap out of my mother's arms onto my father, who's standing nearby. Um, and so I guess at that point, what little tiny Jason needed for peace was not necessarily the loving and kind intention of mom. It was the power, the force of dad. And so even little Jason, perceived like some sort of difference. Maybe he didn't think dad was as nice as mom, but he even then knew that like dad got stuff done, and he was scary, and he was gonna scare that evil monster away. So I knew even then in like my little brain, my peace, where I'm gonna find my peace, is um, essentially in the hands of someone that has the ability to protect and take care of me. And it's really interesting that we're called to live this life with this mentality towards God, and absolutely not in nearly that same way this attitude towards human beings. Like, it is good to lean on one another, absolutely. But if we bring them to a threshold of like, I'm betting everything on this. If we put them in this, I like idolatry spot, then things suddenly become much less healthy. And so, all that to say, I hope today we can find some rest. Um, we can let go of some of the things that are always on our mind, whether that's the bank account, whether that's the grocery list, whether that's the piles of chores that keep um, getting bigger, um, whether that's always fearing an email from a kid's teacher, or um, always being afraid that you're going to get a note from your boss at work. And take those things that are important, things that matter, um, and not frivolously let them go, not take them and just vent and dump them onto a spouse, or worse, a child, or even a friend, which it's still okay to talk about, your feelings and everything. But we're going to take that, we're going to say, God, even though my friends and my family, my spouse, I know that they're strong. I know that they have good judgment. And I know that they have kindness and good intentions for me. But God, with these things that require my attention during the day, that make me pause and keep me up at night and keep me from being present in this moment, in my love for you and my love for others and my relationships with others. God, these things I trust to you. You are strong. You have a capacity and an ability of infinitely more than any mortal person. And God, You see the whole universe. You created it. You wrote the world into existence with your breath. You have better judgment than anyone else. And God, there's no one that loves me quite so much like you do. And I'm going to trust you with this, God. And maybe I'm still going to talk to my partner about it. Maybe I'm going to call up a friend. Maybe I'm going to go lay on a couch near someone I trust and take a nap. And I'm going to let go of just a little bit. And I'm going to ask you to take it and put it in your hands, God. Thank you. In your name, amen. So a little shorter one for Jason, but that's our morning prayer, friends. I hope you find a lot of trust in God's power. Say a prayer for me in the lock-in tomorrow night. It'll be good. I'm going to sleep as much as I can. Get that in now. All right. I love you, Hickory family.